Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, The Naughty Gnomes of No, by Jamie Ricks. Today's story is The Long Face. There was a good reason why Petty Gagamble Fatlock had such a long face. She was a sulker, a huffer and puffer, a permanent pouter, a patutant princess, whose stroppy bottom jaw jutted out so far that her face resembled a crescent moon. She lived in a castle in the country, which was so big it was marked on the audience survey maps with a pound sign to indicate that the owners, her parents, were wallowing in Wonga. It was called Biddlethorpe Hall, standing in 300 acres of prime English countryside. It came complete with its own lake, its own riding stables, and its own haunted wood, where the ghost of a headless horseman was said to butcher passing ramblers for their heads. They should have kept an eye out for him and given him that instead. Petty's parents, Lord and Lady Gagamble Fatlock, were distant people. Both of them had been born in India at a time when doing things for yourself was unheard of. As a result, they had unusual ideas about the rearing of children, believing that hard work, itchy clothes and cold bedrooms produced a well-behaved child, who would not embarrass you at the golf club. But somewhere something went wrong. But because despite their strict rules, Petty was not well behaved and embarrassed them buckets. She knew every trick in the big book of sulking to keep her parents twisted round her little finger, refusing to answer their questions, sneering at them in public, and turning her head away from a bedtime kiss, not forgetting the daily expedition of foot stamping, curl tossing, and door slamming. She was a master of the dark, borrowed arts. Browed arts. And it all began and ended with Jill. Jill was a girl with none of Petty's advantages. She lived in the valley below Biddlethorpe Hall, and her parents both worked to pay the rent. Life was not especially hard for Jill, but what the family had, they had earned, which meant that Jill treasured her possessions, unlike Petty, of course. Both girls had been born on the same day, so despite their different backgrounds, they were always compared to each other at school and across the gossip counter at the post office. Jill was good at everything, schoolwork, games, and helping her mother around the house. And this, combined with a sunny disposition and curly hair, made her the most popular girl in town. Petty, on the other hand, could not have been less popular had she been outed as a baby-eating ogre. Baby-eating ogres are always popular with me. Her glowing features, quick temper, her glowering features and quick temper saw to that little surprise, therefore, that Petty saw Jill as the competition, as the girl she had to beat, at everything. In the early days, when they were at primary school, Petty would hide Jill's art apron to get her into trouble. "She must have lost it, Miss Shall. We all pull our... shall we? Shall we all pull her hair?" When they moved up to bigger school, she knocked ink over Jill's homework, or chewed her pencil nib, so that she couldn't make notes during lessons. They never actually shared a birthday party, but Petty always invited Jill to hers. Not out of kindness, but so that she could humiliate her in front of all her friends. "Now then," said the hypnotist, "who wants to come up and be hypnotized?" Petty raised her hand. "The birthday girl." No, not me, she said, feigning generosity. I've had such a lovely birthday, it wouldn't be fair if I was hypnotized as well. Let Jill have all the fun, it's her birthday too. So Jill was hypnotized, and Petty took advantage, making her rival do unspeakable things, while spellbound. These things, the picking of a dog's nose and putting a jelly in her parents' pants, or her pants, and putting her pants on her head, and washing her hair in congealed chip oil. And then the two girls competed for their friendship badge in the brownies. Petty hid kippers in Jill's shoes. It took Brown Owl 3 days to find the source of the stink, by which time Jill had no friends left at all. Lord and Lady Gamble-Fatlock always knew if Petty was having a problem with Jill, because the sulks would go on for longer than usual. "Why the long face now?" asked Lady Gamble-Fatlock one evening after Petty had thrown her ravioli over Nanny Betty's head. Petty grunted and turned her back on her mother. "I hate you! I hate it when you say that!" "Say what?" "About the long face." "You've always have a long face." "No, I don't. It's a normal face." "Not when you're sulking, Petula. You seem unhappy." Petty stomped over to the bedroom window, plonked herself down on the bench, and stared out the sky. "I am," she snapped. "But there's nothing you can do about it, because you never buy me what I want." "You mean unlike the new 4-poster bed you wanted 3 months ago, or the new mobile phone and MP3 player you wanted last week, or the fashion house dress designer you wanted yesterday?" "All right," screamed the spoiled girl. "I get the message, Mother. You're fired," she said to her fashion house dress designer. So he packed up his tulls and tartans and left. Lady Gamble-Fatlock sat down on Petty's bed and patted the duvet. "Your father and I are flying to Vienna for the opera tonight," she said. "So either you tell me what is bothering you, or you go to bed angry." "What's the point?" pouted Petty. "You'll only say no." "Try me." "I want a pony," she wailed. "A winning pony that just wins and wins and wins and never stops." "But you can't ride," said her mother. "See?" squealed the girl. "I said you'd say no." "I haven't said anything," protested her mother defensively. "You haven't said yes yet." "We'll discuss this in the morning when you are in a better mood." But in the morning, the cloud over Petty's head was even darker. She refused to get out of bed, so Lord Gamble-Fatlock was separated from the devilled kidneys to explain to his daughter the need for obedience. "Why the long face?" he said as he marched into her bedroom. "Is that all you and Mother can say?" barked Petty from inside the folds of her duvet. "No," he said. "I also say this, Petula. Fathers are wiser than daughters, which is why what they say is always right and must be obeyed. Were it the other way round, chaos would follow. And do we want chaos?" "No, we want a pony," muttered the girl. I'm glad we got on that, said. Yeah. So, I'm glad we got to that, said her father. Why should you have a pony when you can't even look after a hamster? That is so unfair, she howled, exploding out of her duvet in a flurry of arms and hair. It wasn't my fault he had a nervous breakdown. Thought he was a lemming and threw himself out of the window. You threw him out of the window, Petula, in a fit of pique, when I refused to buy you that crate of ghostly carrots, so that you and Jill could go into the haunted woods and feed them to the headless horseman's horse. You're so mean. I was going to give those carrots to Jill as a present because she likes horses. And no doubt scare her half to death when the horse turned up and its headless rider tried to cut her head off. There's something not nice about you, my girl. Which Petty took as a compliment. What neither of her parents could winkle out of their daughter was why she wanted a pony. It should have been obvious. Jill had been given one. It was called Crumble, had a tufty coat of butterscotch brown, a mane of platinum white, a warm pink nose, and long soft eyelashes that brushed Jill's cheek whenever she stroked her face. They were a brilliant team. In fact, they had won every Jim Garner going in the country. Jill had a mantelpiece brimming with trophies, and Crumble's stable door was covered in rosettes. For 3 long days, Petty put her parents to the sword with a sulk of professional proportions. The house sighed with her heavy silence and shook as her boots dented the furniture. In fact, it was the longest time she'd ever had such a long face. And eventually, after the 4th silent breakfast on the trot, it paid off. Lord and Lady Gagamble Fatlock made a secret dash to the horse shop and bought their precious angel not just a pony, but all the trimmings as well. Saddle, tack straw, brushes, feed bag, biscuits, toothbrush, and ribbons for its mane. Not hard to see the attraction of a goldfish, is it? Grumbled Lord Gagamble Fatlock as he stood at the cash till and paid the huge bill. Luckily, it wasn't a big pony, so they were able to get it home in the back of the car and sneak it into the stable without Petty seeing. When they told her that there was a surprise for her in the courtyard, she ran downstairs whooping with excitement. But when she saw the pony, she stopped in her tracks. Did you ask the pony shop man if it was the best because I said I only wanted the best? You heard me say that, didn't you? I said I only wanted a winner. Don't you think it's a beautiful pony? Asked Lady Gagamble Fatlock. It's a bit small, was her long-faced daughter's reply. What are you going to call it? I wasn't going to call it anything. You've got to give it a name, exclaimed her Petty's mother. If I give it a name, I will get attached to it, and that's not why I've got it. I don't want to love it. I am going to learn to ride, and then go out and beat Jill at the Jim Garners. That's all very well, said Lady Gagamble Fatlock. But who's going to teach you? Hopefully the person who's going to be looking after it, said Petty. Her father's jaw dropped open. I thought you'd be looking after it, he gasped. Me? Sniggered Petty. Look after that smelly thing. I'd rather die. You have to get me a groom who can look after the horse, prepare it for the competition, and teach me how to ride." "A groom?" he exploded. "Yes, a horse servant. Sleeps in the stable on damp straw. You must have heard of a groom." And when her father said, "Impossible, Petula Gamble Fatlock," Petty pushed out her lower jaw and folded her arms and sat on the floor and growled. 9 hours later, she had herself a groom. His name was Stuart Piddle, but she called him Stupid because she said that suited him best. He had a big head on a scrawny body which made him the ideal size for a jockey. He loved horses and knew everything about them. Not that Petty cared about that. "So," he said when he first arrived, "you'll obviously be wanting the welfare of the animal to come first, and at all times I'll be mucking out the stable twice a day, sterilising the bit, getting him shod and wormed and jabbed by the vet. Don't want him to go lame. What have you got to feed him?" "I'm not bothered with food," said Petty. "I don't care if his fur is matted, and he's got flies in his ears, just as long as he jumps fences and beats Jill." "He won't perform if he's not looked after." Then see to it that he is," she growled, thumping Stu between his shoulders to make her point. "Okay," he said reluctantly. "And what shall I call that?" "Dog food," said Petty proudly, "because that's what he'll be if he doesn't win." In an amusing twist of fate, dog food's old Petty can eat nowadays. While Jill continued to pick up the trophies, Petty made Stu go out at 4 o'clock every morning to put dog food through his paces. She checked up on them before breakfast, then again in the middle of the morning, and if she felt that they weren't making enough progress, she would take a whip to the horse and demand more effort. And when Stu grabbed the cane and told her to stop, she wrenched it out of his grip and beat him with it too. Once the pony was tamed, Petty climbed aboard and told Stu to teach her all he knew about riding. "Because," she informed him, I shall be riding on Sunday in the last Gymkhana of the season, and I intend to win." "You'll never do that," he said. "It takes months of practice to jump over fences. You could hurt yourself, not to mention the horse." "Then don't mention it," she said. "Now, where do I start?" "Hup!" And she swung her legs across the pony's neck and kicked it in the eye. She was hopeless when she told her to grip with her knees. She complained that it hurt her back, and when she was asked to rise and fall in the saddle, she looked at him with a glimmer eye that would have withered tree bark. "It's bursting my bottom," she said. "No!" Come Sunday, at the Gymkhana, therefore, she was woeful. Unprepared. Before the jumping, dog food was admired by the judges for being so beautifully presented, but when he came to the competition, success was more elusive. The little pony did its best, but he was carrying a dead weight around on his back, a sulky lump of a girl who didn't like riding and kept whispering, "Come on, dog food, do it for your mistress, or it's the heat-sealed can for you," which rather put him off his stride. He knocked down 3 fences, which, as far as Petty was concerned, was 3 fences too many. especially when Jill and Crumble came first again. And afterwards, Jill kissed Dogfood's long nose and told Petty that he was a lovely horse, and one day he was sure to win. Something that comment, as far as Petty was concerned, was rubbing salt in the wound. When she got home, she was in a funk to end all funks. She hated it when she didn't get her own way, and this time it was the fault of this stupid pony. "Why the long face?" asked her mother when Petty refused to get out of the car. "Stop saying that!" exploded the grumpy girl. "I haven't got a long face." "It looks long enough to ski off of," commented her mother. "It's all your fault," she screamed. "I knew it was a bad idea to buy him." Who? Said her mother. "Dog food." She kicked open the car door and stepped out into the courtyard. "I'm going to get rid of him." Her parents shot out of opposite doors and grabbed an arm each. "No," said her mother. "Petula, you can't." "Stop telling me what I can do," threatened Petty, shaking herself free. "And when I've done it, if I hear one word of a telling off, I shall sulk into your graves, both of you." Then she stomped off, leaving Lord and Lady Gagamble Fatlock shipwrecked in a sea of despair. "I don't know what else here we can do," sobbed Petty's mother. "We can leave her alone," said her husband, "and let her learn the hard way." Is there any other way to teach a child? Petty told Stu to take care of dog food and take him to the pet food factory. "If he can't be Crumble, he's no good to me," she said. "He needs punishing. Get them to grind up his bones really small." "No," said Stu. "I can't do that." "You can and you will," she replied, frothing from the corners of her mouth like an agitated racehorse. She picked up the swashing cane and cracked it across the groom's back. "I can do what I like to both of you." She chased the boy and the pony from the stable. "And don't think I won't know if you've lied to me," she shouted. "If you come back here and tell me he's canned, then he's not. I'll have you turned into pet food too." Now, Stuart Piddle may have been a simple lad, but he was not stupid, and more than anything else, he could not bear cruelty to animals. He could no more lead dog food to the slaughterhouse than cut off his own thumb. As he walked away from Biddlethorpe Hall on the path to the village, he passed the entrance to the haunted woods. The trunks of the silver larch trees glistened white with scrubbed bones. Their branches stretched out across the forest floor like long, thin fingers, and entwined with others to create a latticed web of sesame 10 meters off the path, and the wood screened its heart from passing eyes. What better place to hide a pony behind the barrier of silver larch? Dog food became invisible. Even if he was seen, nobody dared enter the wood for fear of the headless horseman. Leading the pony by the reins, Stuart guided it through the tree line into drappled interior, where he left it to gaze on the wild mushrooms. Then he turned back to Biddlethorpe Hall with a lie on his lips to convince his mistress that her pony had passed into pet food. Imagine his surprise, therefore, when he emerged from the wood to find his mistress standing there, tapping her foot. "I knew you would betray me," she spat the girl with the long, sulky face. "Small people with big heads can't help being deceitful. Now you're going to pay," as she cracked her cane across his shoulder blades. Stu garbled a lie to save his skin. "I was just coming to get you," he cried. "The pony got a stone in his foot hoof and went lame, and I knew it wasn't going to reach the pet food factory, so I tied it up in the wood where it wouldn't wander off, and I was just coming back to get the car." "You're lying," she snarled. "I followed you. I watched you look around before you went into the trees. The pony wasn't lame, and you looked shifty." She plunged into the clutch of silver larches, brushing aside the wooden fingers the groom made chase, blurting out nonsense in the hope that she would leave the pony alone. "He needs a blacksmith. If you want to help, you should go back home and phone one." By now she was beside the pony. She lashed out with her whip and watched it jump nimbly out of the way. "Doesn't seem injured to me," she said. "No," said Stuart Piddle. I mean, having run out of lies, the groom had nowhere else but the truth. "You're cruel," he said. "You and that ugly long face of yours should be taught how to behave properly." "How dare you!" she yelled. "I do not have a long face." "Yes, you do. On a horse it would look beautiful, but not on you." Just then the birds stopped singing, and in the distance a patter of hooves ate up the forest floor. Petty and Stu stopped talking and cocked their ears to the sound of a horse galloping closer. It crashed through the branches and kicked up clods of earth. The blood drained from their faces as they realized what was coming. "I want to go home now," whimpered Petty Gigamble-Fatlock. "Take me home immediately." But Stuart Piddle was rooted to the spot. "We're not going anywhere," he whispered as the thunder rolled out of the forest. "It can't be," screeched the girl. "It is," said the boy. The headless horseman's horse, a black steed with smoking breath, soared over the fallen tree as its master drew his sword. With one clean slice, he switched the blade through the groom's scrawny neck, cutting his head clean off. It somersaulted in midair and landed bloody side up in the phantom's lap. With eyelids cold and still, Petty had forgotten to breathe. She watched in stilled horror as her groom's headless body bounced off the ground like a bag of straw. The ghost then lifted Stu's head and pressed it down upon its own jagged neck. The eyes sprung open as the ghostly blood glowed through its veins. "And now for you," said the headless horseman, in a voice that matched Stuart Piddle's in every rhythm and tone. "What are you going to do to me?" stammered the terrified girl. Before I was headless, I was a blacksmith," said the apparition with the crooked smile. "Let's see if I've still got my skills." Then he jumped down from his horse and unrolled the iron instruments of trade. From a sack attached to his saddle, a hammer, a pair of pincers, a punch for marking rivets, holes, and a poker, for which he had no other purpose than red-hot fun. When Petty woke up, she was lying on the ground alone, the ghostly blacksmith with the head of her groom. His black horse and her little pony had gone. She looked across to where Stuart Piddle's body had landed, but that had been cleared away. On the forest floor, next to her right hand, the Headless Horseman had left a looking glass, and a note scrawled hastily in blood. In future, when people ask you why the long face, you must tell them, because I'm a horse. Scared of what she might see, she hesitated as she picked up the mirror and moved it reluctantly towards her face. When it came into view, she screamed. Only screaming was as easy as it had once been, not as easy as it once been, because the lower part of her face had been reconstructed with iron bars. The bones had been broken and lengthened by insertion of an external metal frame welded to her skull. It had elongated her face from the top of her nose to the tip of her chin, so that now she looked every inch a horse. "Oh, there you are, Petula," said Lady Gagamble Fatlock when her daughter sheepishly entered the dining room for supper that night. "And where have you been, and why the long face?" asked her father. "Because I'm a horse," she said, or rather didn't say, because her jaw didn't move. In fact, she didn't say much from then on, which made everyone's life considerably more tolerable. As for Jill, she carried on winning Jim Garners, and when she grew up, she won a gold medal for Britain in the Olympic Games. Sadly, not on a pony called Dog Food. He and the ghostly groom paired up and entered the Jim Garners all over the country. Unfortunately, they're still looking for their first win on account of the tiny technical flaw. Whenever the little pony goes over a jump, its rider's head falls off. Talking of dog food, I love anything in a tin, because the serrated lids make lethal frisbees. If you hurt them into a crowded bathroom, it amuses me to see what drops off. The end.